Good morning. This is Northern Light for Wednesday, April 19th. I'm Monica Sandreski.
And I'm Todd Moe.
A killing in the North Country is gaining national attention. A young woman from Saratoga County was shot and killed over the weekend after she and some friends drove down the wrong driveway.
While they were leaving the residence, once they determined that they were at the wrong house, the subject came out on his porch for whatever reason and fired 2 shots, one of which struck the vehicle that Kaylin was in.
Also, Governor Kathy Hochul's choice for the next chief judge was confirmed by the state Senate yesterday. Rowan Wilson becomes the first African-American chief judge. Plus, the global issue of people seeking asylum from violence and disasters is being felt here in the North Country. Canada is now detaining and deporting most people who try to cross unofficially near Plattsburgh.
They don't have a plan because their plan was to go to Canada, and we can do a little bit to help them, but they're basically left to their own devices.
We'll hear from migrants and the volunteers trying to help them coming up.
And our series on libraries in the region continues. All of that is just ahead on Northern Light. Stick with us.
Broadcast of Northern Light here on North Country Public Radio is supported by Mountain Orthotic and Prosthetic Services, a full-service practice committed to providing care for patients of all ages, with offices in Lake Placid, Plattsburgh, and Malone. Details and referrals at mountainonp.com. And by Blue Seed Studios, a multidisciplinary art center featuring classes for adults and youth, concerts, art exhibits, and more. BLUseedstudios.org.
This is Northern Light. I'm Monica Sandreski.
And I'm Todd Moe. A killing over the weekend in Washington County is garnering national attention. A young woman from Saratoga County was shot and killed after she and some friends drove down the wrong driveway. The homeowner has been arrested and charged with second-degree murder. Emily Russell has details.
The shooting happened on Saturday night. 20-year-old Kaylin Gillis and 3 of her friends were driving around Washington County looking for another friend's house. Before 10 p.m., they drove down the wrong driveway. At a press conference on Monday, Washington County Sheriff Jeffrey Murphy said they stayed in their car and turned around when 65-year-old Kevin Monahan came out of his home.
While they were leaving the residence, once they determined that they were at the wrong house, the subject came out on his porch for whatever reason and fired 2 shots, one of which struck the vehicle that Kaylin was in.
According to the sheriff, the friends drove a few miles away where there was cell service and called the cops. Gillis was given CPR, but she ultimately died of her injuries. Sheriff Murphy said Monahan was uncooperative when they showed up at his home. They spent more than an hour with him before he was taken into custody. Monahan has been charged with second-degree murder and is being held at the Warren County Jail. At Monday's press conference, a reporter asked the sheriff why Monahan allegedly shot at the car in his driveway.
There was clearly no threat from anyone in the vehicles. There was no reason for Mr. Monahan to feel threatened, especially as it appears the vehicles were leaving.
The fatal shooting of Kaylin Gillis came just a few days after a black teen from Kansas City was shot when he went up to the wrong house, owned by an older white man. Missouri, unlike New York State, has a stand-your-ground law. The older man from Kansas City wasn't initially arrested, though he's since been charged with first-degree assault. The black teen survived the shooting and has been released from the hospital. Both incidents have been getting national attention. On Monday, Washington County Sheriff Jeffrey Murphy said he knew Gillis and her family personally.
I know for a fact that she comes from a good family, a very good family, and I know them personally. And, she was a young girl that was taken way too young.
A GoFundMe page was set up for Gillis's family. It quickly surpassed its goal and continues to raise tens of thousands of dollars. Emily Russell, North Country Public Radio.
Kaylin Gillis's hometown community is remembering her too. According to the Glens Falls Post-Star, Hebron Supervisor Brian Campbell posted on the town's website saying the community is in mourning. Officials from her alma mater, Schuylerville High School, gathered to remember her yesterday. She was involved in art and the Future Farmers of America. Principal James Ducharme read a statement from Gillis's FFA instructor, Mary Foote, saying, quote, "Her smile and ability to make those around her laugh find her as one of the most entertaining students in FFA. She really was a friend to all and cared about everyone around her."
New York State's Board of Regents has officially banned all forms of Indigenous-themed school mascots. Glens Falls recently went through a community-wide process to change its mascot from Indians to black bears. North Country schools, including Saranac Lake and Messina, have changed their mascots in recent years. One school, Cambridge in Washington County, has continued to fight the change through lawsuits. The state says it expects some schools to sue to keep their mascots. WAMC's Ian Pickus has more on the policy change.
Under the new policy, dozens of districts that have resisted earlier efforts to do away with branding that includes names such as Braves and Warriors will have until the end of the 2025 school year to finalize the changes. The vote by the State Board of Regents was unanimous.
All those in favor?
Aye.
There are exceptions for recognized tribal teams and schools that have a standing agreement with recognized tribes. The National Congress of American Indians says it's aware of 7 other state bans and says others are under deliberation. New York's ban takes effect May 3rd. I'm Ian Pickus in Albany.
Governor Kathy Hochul's choice for the next chief judge, Rowan Wilson, was confirmed by the state Senate yesterday. Wilson becomes the first African-American chief judge. But as Karen DeWitt reports, the confirmation was not without some controversy over Wilson's ruling in a rape case.
Ayes 40, nays 19.
The nominee is confirmed.
Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins, who is both the first woman and first African-American woman to lead the Senate, says the confirmation of Wilson shatters another barrier.
We're officially confirming the first black judge to serve the state of New York as the chief judge of the appeals court.
Wilson, who has served for 6 years as an associate judge on the state's highest court before working in private practice, was praised by Democrats in the Senate for being a thoughtful judge who will turn the direction of the court away from a conservative trend in recent years under former Chief Judge Janet DeFiore. She resigned last summer. Senator Stewart-Cousins says choosing a judge to lead New York's court system is more important than ever in the wake of a conservative U.S. Supreme Court, which has overturned key rights in recent months, including the right to choose an abortion and voting rights.
New York must lead the way against radical rulings and reversals.
But Wilson was slammed by Republicans who are in the minority party in the Senate for being what they say is an activist judge who favors criminal defendants over crime victims. GOP senators particularly criticized a decision Wilson issued just 1 month ago in People v. Regan. Wilson ruled that a convicted rapist could be released from prison after he determined that prosecutors had been too slow to obtain a DNA sample from the man, Andrew Regan, in pretrial proceedings. Senator Dan Steck, a Republican from the North Country, says the incident happened in his district, and one of his constituents was the victim in the case.
What kind of message are we sending the women of this state when you're going to elevate somebody that will let a rapist off back onto the streets? That's the best we can come up with. We can do much better. And I will be in a negative.
Senator Jessica Ramos, a Democrat, in her remarks revealed that she herself is a rape survivor. She told the GOP senators that they don't speak for her, and she accused them of using the issue to create political theater.
You see, I want my rapist to see justice, but due process is justice. And it's very important that we respect the procedures that we've actually outlined in our Constitution, and that we respect everybody's individual right to due process, to be heard, and to be seen by the court fairly.
Ramos voted yes. Wilson was Hochul's second nominee for chief judge. The governor's first choice, Hector LaSalle, was rejected by Senate Democrats earlier this year. They believed he was too conservative to lead the court. In a statement, Hochul called Wilson a highly qualified jurist with a keen sense of fairness and a deep commitment to justice. She says she's confident that he'll use his wealth of experience and his fair-minded approach to guide the state's courts. In Albany, I'm Karen DeWitt.
You're listening to Northern Light right here on North Country Public Radio. It's 10 minutes past 8. Good morning. I'm Todd Moe.
And I'm Monica Sandreski. Just ahead, libraries in Jefferson, Lewis, and St. Lawrence counties are getting a new online catalog system today. We've got details coming up in just a few minutes here on Northern Light.
Music by Martha Gallagher, the Adirondack Harper, in Keene. Check out more of her music on our website, part of our Underscore project, ncpr.org/underscore. Northern Light is supported by St. Lawrence Health, whose affiliation with Rochester Regional Health means more patient access to specialty care, stlawrencehealthsystem.org. And by Fort de la Presentation, home of the Abbey PK Walking Trail, open 7 days a week from sunrise to sunset. Fort1749.org.
The worldwide crush of people seeking asylum from disasters and violence is being felt in Plattsburgh. Last month, the U.S. and Canada closed a loophole in a treaty that brought tens of thousands of migrants to tiny Roxham Road in Clinton County to try to claim asylum in Canada. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced the changes during President Joe Biden's visit to Ottawa on March 24th.
Both of our countries believe in safe, fair, and orderly migration, refugee protection, and border security. This is why we will now apply the Safe Third Country Agreement to asylum seekers who cross between official points of entry.
Canada is now detaining and deporting most people who try to cross unofficially at Roxham Road and elsewhere back to the U.S. Many of those migrants find themselves back in Plattsburgh at the Mountain Mart convenience store where they first arrived by bus from New York City. Champlain Valley reporter Kara Chapman went to the Mountain Mart recently and has our story.
When I walk into the Plattsburgh Mountain Mart, a family of 5 from Turkey is speaking with 2 Canadian volunteers.
Probably a slightly cheaper hotel. It will be at least $130 US.
The volunteers are with Bridges Not Borders, a Quebec-based refugee advocacy organization. They're trying to connect the father, mother, and their 3 daughters with a place to stay for the night. I approach the Turkish man, and he agrees to speak with me via Google Translate. He doesn't want to give his name because he and his family have an asylum claim in the United States. He tells me they lost their home and relatives during an earthquake in Turkey. They traveled to Mexico, then through the U.S. to try to claim asylum in Canada because he has family there. But they were detained, then deported.
We went to the Roxham Gate and they let us in there. They kept us for 2 days. They deported us even though we said we had no other place to stay.
As I continue speaking with the Turkish father, his 2 older daughters wander about the store. He and his wife take turns holding the third, a baby. I ask him if there's anything he thinks is important for people to know about what they're going through.
We are in a desperate situation, but I don't think the authorities fully understand this. They misunderstand us. This man and his family are not the only asylum seekers sent back by Canada who come into the Mountain Mart. There's a man from the Democratic Republic of the Congo who says he has a common-law wife in Canada, a family from the Dominican Republic and Venezuela who plan to make their way to a friend in New Jersey, a Haitian man and a Congolese woman who linked up while they were in custody. Wendy Ayat, one of the volunteers, helps me translate when I speak to the Congolese woman who also doesn't want to be identified. I ask her, what's next?
Oui, c'est ça. She needs to get a place where she can rest, go to a hotel and recover a little bit before she can obviously see clearly what she's going to do next.
The woman says she has a sibling in Texas. She says now she has no choice but to apply for asylum in the United States. Her eyes well up with tears. How do you feel right now?
Comment vous vous sentez maintenant?
Un peu triste.
Oui. Oui, nous, on est triste pour vous. On est triste pour toutes les personnes refoulées. She says she feels sad, and I said, well, we feel very sad for you. Yeah.
Grace Bubeck, the other volunteer, brings the woman and most of the other people we've met to a local hotel. She says it's heartbreaking to see people get turned back from Canada and not understand why.
They don't have a plan because their plan was to go to Canada, and we can do a little bit to help them, but, they're basically left to their own devices.
Bubeck says asylum seekers waiting out their claims in Canada have access to all kinds of support: housing, a social worker, education for their children. That's not a guarantee in the United States. When they're sent back here, some still have money left over to buy a bus ticket or get food and a hotel room. Others, though, used everything they had to get to Canada and have nothing left. Kathy Sager is the president of Plattsburgh Cares. She says her organization was inundated with calls when the Roxham Road loophole closed.
Literally hundreds of people were in need of immediate care because they spend their last dollars to make this trip. And the word did not get out in time that Roxham Road was shutting down.
Sager estimates that Plattsburgh Cares spent about a third of its funding to help around 60 people that first week. Now, they're still helping when they get calls, but also working with other groups, trying to get helpful information posted at the Mountain Mart, and advocating for a coordinated response at all levels of government.
This is a countywide emergency that we need support with from our county and from the state and from the federal government. So we are appealing on all those levels to create a coordinated response so that people don't fall through the cracks.
Part of that effort is Clinton County's Department of Social Services, which administers what are called safety net programs to migrants who are eligible. Deputy Commissioner Rich Holcomb says those can include non-U.S. citizens who are, quote, known to immigration authorities. According to Holcomb, since Clinton County is on a major route to Montreal, it's not a new thing for undocumented people to seek safety net assistance.
What is new is just the number of individuals presenting themselves.
Holcomb says DSS used to see 1 or 2 applications a quarter. Since the border changes went into effect, that number has grown to 2 to 3 per day. He says the county has a limited supply of emergency housing, and DSS primarily assists by providing transportation that gets people to other resources. Holcomb says he thinks the agency can handle the current level of need.
It's new, but it's not. We've dealt with crisis like this before. And we will just deal with it in the same fashion, which is why we have guidelines and rules and regulations. It kind of makes it easier to do this type of work that way.
Holcomb says most of the migrants getting safety net assistance aren't staying in the area, and it seems the number of people coming here with the goal of crossing into Canada is decreasing. The official numbers appear to support that theory. In the 3 months before the changes went into effect, Canadian police detained more than 1,000 people crossing unofficially into Quebec each week. In the first 2 weeks after the changes were implemented, 222 were processed. Of those, about 3/4 were sent back to the U.S. Michael Cashman is supervisor of the town of Plattsburgh. He says asylum seekers' presence in the community is a federal issue that requires a federal response, including resources for the state and county.
And it continues to be a crisis from the standpoint that a plan needs to be well formulated that if there were a surge, and while we've not seen it yet, but should there be a surge in numbers, then it can be upscaled rapidly.
I reached out to the Department of Homeland Security about whether the federal government is monitoring the impact of asylum seekers, has a plan to inform or support them, or plans to provide assistance to Clinton County and New York State. I didn't hear back. I also requested interviews with Congresswoman Elise Stefanik and Senator Kirsten Gillibrand about the issue. Stefanik's office didn't get back to me, but Gillibrand sent a statement on her behalf. The senator said, quote, "The situation in the North Country shows why it is critical that we pass comprehensive immigration reform." For Ayat, one of the volunteers at the Mountain Mart, the plight of asylum seekers is a lesson to all Canadians who take for granted safety and stability in their country.
We have a great deal of difficulty imagining that this could happen to us, that, you know, the world could turn in such a way so that all of a sudden we're the ones who have to flee. We're the ones who are not safe in our country and really have no choice but to leave.
Ayat says her biggest fear now is that asylum seekers will use human traffickers to get into Canada through dangerous terrain. And as for those who are caught and turned back, she says it should be the government, not organizations like hers, who help them plot their next steps. Kara Chapman, North Country Public Radio, Plattsburgh.
Fort Drum's economic impact to the North Country now exceeds $2 billion. That's according to an annual report by Advocate Drum, an Army booster organization, and the Development Authority of the North Country. The report says the Army base near Watertown has an economic impact that's up about $250 million from last year at $2.2 billion. Jefferson County, where the base is located, receives the lion's share of that impact, but Lewis County and St. Lawrence County also benefit from tens of millions of dollars in impact. Fort Drum is the largest single-site employer in New York State, employing about 19,000 military and civilian people on the sprawling base, as well as almost 6,000 in related jobs. Those jobs mostly come in the health and social services, education, and construction fields.
And the city of Utica has been selected to host the World Women's Hockey Championships next year. Governor Kathy Hochul announced the news in a press release Sunday. The championship will be held in April of 2024 at Utica's Nexus Center, a new venue funded in part by New York's Upstate Revitalization Initiative. 10 international teams and 30,000 spectators are expected to attend. The International Ice Hockey Federation hosts the event each year. This year's tournament just concluded last weekend in Brampton, Ontario. The USA defeated Canada in the gold medal match on Saturday.
You're listening to Northern Light here on North Country Public Radio. I'm Todd Moe.
And I'm Monica Sandreski. In just a minute, a new and improved online library catalog is coming to Jefferson, Lewis, and St. Lawrence counties. Then stick around after the show for Bird Note coming up at 8:42. But first, Todd has a look at the weather for us.
Cloudy skies today with light snow or rain showers, winds out of the west-southwest, highs the 40s, near 50 this afternoon. Tomorrow, sunshine, highs near 60, and then Friday, a mix of sun and clouds, maybe some scattered showers with highs in the 70s, and it looks like scattered showers through the weekend, both Saturday and Sunday. Clouds and 36 degrees in Canson.
Starting today, change is coming to the North Country Library System, which serves 65 libraries in Jefferson, Lewis, St. Lawrence, and Oswego counties. This year marks its 75th anniversary, and the system's online catalog service is getting an upgrade. But that means the system will be offline for a few days to accommodate the improvements. Libraries will be open during the transition period, and chances are you'll only notice a temporary lack of some online services. The update should make the system easier to use to search for books and reserve materials at local libraries.
Angela Newman is continuing education coordinator with the North Country Library System in Watertown. We spoke recently about the system's 75th anniversary, library usage in the last few years, and this week's changes in the online catalog.
The first and most obvious thing is it's such a cleaner, more modern design, and it's more streamlined. It looks better, but there's obviously more to it than that. But you'll notice right away the difference because it looks so much cleaner and simpler. But also, it makes searching easier. It has a better search capability. So, for example, let's say you're looking for a particular book. I'm going to say Where the Crawdads Sing, because that was the book everyone has been looking for a couple years now. So let's say in the old catalog, if you looked for that title, you would get multiple records for, that title. You'd get the book, you'd get the ebook, you'd get the audiobook, you'd get the large print. The new catalog puts all of those things together so that you're already in the record. And if, there are no copies of the print book, but that's okay. I can put a hold on the large print. That's fine. So it makes searching and finding what you're looking for a lot easier. So that's one thing that it does. It also has, the way that patrons get notified now about, my hold came in or, my books are due back is an email. Or sometimes in some libraries, if you don't provide an email, they'll call you. But the new catalog has texting capabilities. So you could just get a text message when your hold comes in. And I know people are really excited about that because so much is through texting now. So that's another thing that the catalog is going to do. Say you're looking for something and you find something else, but you don't want to check it out right now. Just add it to your list and come back to it later.
Give me sort of some crucial dates here, I guess, because the system kind of goes down a little bit, so folks might see a little bit of an interruption maybe, or you're going to try to make this as seamless as possible, or? We
are, yes. So the access to the online catalog, which is, where you can go log into your account and see what you have checked out and place holds, that is going down on April 19th. So we will not have access to an online catalog of any kind, not the new one, not the old one, from April 19th through April 25th. The new catalog goes up April 26th. So you can still go to your library between April 19th and April 25th and check books out. You just can't do it online. You have to go in person, and they will do it the old-fashioned way. Probably not with a date stamp, but they will, they will not go through the online catalog to check out your book. We can't change your address in our system. We can't do anything in the online catalog, but you still have access to borrow books. And our ebooks aren't connected to that system. So you can still check out ebooks and e-audiobooks. You can still use online resources. You just can't place a hold or check out a book through, you can't renew something. You really have to contact your library for those kind of services.
And my library card stays the same and everything?
Yep, your library card number stays the same. You don't need to get a new card. That transfers over. And also anything you had on hold, say I just placed a hold yesterday. I have to replace that hold? Nope, it carries over. All your checkouts carry over. No action required on your part. The one thing that you may want to do is just hold off returning things to the library until after we go live, because we won't be able to check them in, and we can't put them back on the shelf. We just have to put them in a pile. So I would say hold on to your books. They will get backdated so that it looks like you returned it when it was due.
I'm just kind of curious, does your group, does the library system, do you track library usage and how many percentage of folks are signing up for library cards? And just out of curiosity, how would you sort of gauge the North Country in terms of interest in libraries? Is it growing? Are there a lot more children wanting a library card? That kind of thing.
It's really interesting because library use has shifted so much, just even within my lifetime. Libraries are just doing different things now. Certainly, internet connectivity has made a difference in how people use libraries. We haven't seen print circulation particularly climb or fall. It has remained pretty steady. But, internet use has gone up. When the libraries first had public computers available for patrons to access, people would come in and use the computers a lot. But now so many more people have their own devices. They're not coming in to use the computer. They're coming in to use the Wi-Fi. But there are print books are still very popular, especially with younger people who don't want to be on their phones all the time. Students, they would prefer they might download an audiobook, but they would prefer to read on print. A lot of research shows. And especially with very young children, storytime books, picture books, that's still very popular. Books are our brand. Anytime you're trying to, work something